Welcome to Reddit Revenge Stories. Did you know over 90% of our viewers don't subscribe? If you enjoy this video, please subscribe and hit that like button. We're targeting 500 likes on this one. Let's dive into today's tale. It's a strange feeling, really. Looking back at your life and realizing that the moments you once thought were ordinary were actually signs, hints, clues, like tiny breadcrumbs leading to a truth you didn't want to see. I didn't realize how blind I had been until the day it all came crashing down. My name is Andrew Thompson. I'm 39 years old, a software engineer from Columbus, Ohio, and this is the story of how my marriage fell apart and how I took it upon myself to put things back together in the only way I could, through truth and quiet revenge. I met Rachel 12 years ago. We were both volunteers at a community fundraiser for a local animal shelter. I was helping run the website and donation system, and she was one of the outreach organizers. She had this bright laugh that carried across the room, the kind of laugh that made people turn and smile even if they didn't know what the joke was. We hit it off immediately. I wasn't the most confident guy back then, nerdy, quiet, a little too into debugging code and not enough into social cues, but Rachel made me feel like I mattered. She listened, she asked questions, she remembered the tiniest details. I fell hard, fast, and completely. We got married 2 years later in a small ceremony with just our families and closest friends. It felt right. Life with Rachel felt right. We bought a cozy house in a quiet neighborhood, and I poured myself into my job while she started her own business. A small events planning firm that grew faster than either of us expected. At first, I was thrilled for her. I was proud. She was driven, smart, and resourceful. I never questioned the late nights, the weekend conferences, the endless texts and calls from clients. I was too trusting. Or maybe I was just too comfortable. The first real crack appeared about 3 years ago. It was subtle. Rachel became distant, distracted. She smiled less, laughed less, and when I asked if she was okay, she always said she was just tired from work. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. But things didn't feel the same. We stopped having dinners together. Her phone never left her hand. She'd step outside to take calls, whispering, pacing. I chalked it up to stress. Everyone goes through rough patches, right? One night I came home early from a work trip. I hadn't told her because I wanted to surprise her. I remember walking into the house expecting to see her on the couch with one of her crime documentaries playing, but the house was dark and empty. I waited. An hour passed, then another. I called her, and she answered on the third ring, sounding startled. She said she was at a networking event and had lost track of time. That was the first time I felt something tighten in my chest. Suspicion, maybe, or just the sick feeling that something wasn't right. Still, I didn't confront her. I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. I wanted to believe that we were still the same couple who danced barefoot in the kitchen and took spontaneous road trips just to watch the stars. But something had shifted. Deep down, I think I knew. The turning point came 6 months ago. It was a Sunday morning, and Rachel had left early for what she said was a client meeting across town. I was doing laundry when her tablet lit up with a new message. I don't usually check her devices. That's just not who I am. But something about the way the message preview popped up caught my eye. It said, "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." My heart stopped. I stared at the screen, numb. The name attached to the message was just T. I didn't open it right away. I just stood there, gripping a wet towel in my hands, feeling like I'd stepped into someone else's nightmare. Eventually, I gave in and read the messages. There were dozens, maybe hundreds. They stretched back months, flirty exchanges, late-night conversations, even photos, though thankfully nothing explicit. Still, the context was enough. I pieced together what I could. T wasn't a client. He was someone she'd met at one of her events. From what I could tell, they'd started meeting in secret while I was at work or away on business trips. She lied to me, repeatedly, effortlessly. I didn't confront her right away, I didn't scream or cry or beg for answers. Instead, I took a step back. I began watching. Not in a creepy way, but in a calculating one. I kept things normal on the surface, made her coffee in the morning, asked about her day, kissed her goodnight. But inside, I was building a plan. I wanted the truth. I wanted to see how far this went. And more than anything, I wanted her to underestimate me. I started documenting everything. I took screenshots of her messages, recorded phone calls she made in the backyard when she thought I wasn't listening, and even installed a small GPS tracker on her car. It wasn't about revenge yet, not at first. It was about confirmation. I needed to be sure. And once I needed to be ready. Over the course of a month, I learned more than I ever wanted to know. His name was Trevor Langston. He was a marketing consultant, single, mid-30s, and from what I could tell, a smooth-talking parasite who thrived on attention. He wasn't better looking than me, not smarter, not more successful, but he was there, available, a fantasy escape from the routine life we had built. Rachel fell for him, or maybe just the illusion of him. I read messages where she called him her safe place, and I nearly threw up. I was her husband. I gave her everything I had. How had I become invisible? Once I had enough evidence, I started planning my response. But not the kind you might think. I didn't want drama. I didn't want to key cars or ruin reputations with a single blow-up. I wanted something better, smarter. A form of revenge that was clean, precise, and left no doubt about who had the upper hand. I wanted her to feel what I had felt: betrayal, confusion, loss. But I wanted her to feel it slowly, deeply, and without warning. So I kept smiling, I kept pretending. And in the background, I started making moves. First, I met with a lawyer, quietly. We drew up divorce papers and began crafting a financial strategy that would secure my assets. Ohio is an equitable distribution state, and since most of our shared property was in my name, I had leverage. But I didn't file yet. I waited. Next, I started gathering allies, friends, mutual contacts, even a few of her professional acquaintances who were more loyal to me than to her. I never told them the full truth, just enough to plant seeds. Rachel was going through something, I'd say. I think she's lost focus. Word travels fast in social circles, and soon enough, cracks began to show in her professional image. Then I turned my attention to Trevor. I did my research. He worked as an independent contractor for several mid-sized companies, none of which would take kindly to knowing he was involved in an affair with a married woman whose husband had ties to their businesses. I didn't threaten him yet, but I built a file just in case. All the while, I played the role of loving husband. We even went on a weekend getaway to Vermont, where Rachel posted happy pictures on social media while sneaking off to text him in the bathroom. I knew, of course, I always knew, but I smiled for the camera. Because revenge, I realized, wasn't about explosion, it was about erosion. Little by little, piece by piece, I was pulling the rug out from under her feet. The day I decided to act was our anniversary. 10 years married. I made her breakfast, gave her flowers, wrote her a letter about how much I loved her, how grateful I was, how proud I felt to be her husband. I watched her read it, guilt flickering in her eyes. She hugged me tight. She said she loved me. I nodded and kissed her forehead. That night, while she slept, I finished the last steps of my plan. The next day, everything would begin to unravel. For her, for him, and for the fantasy they built on the foundation of my trust. And when it did, I'd be ready. This was no longer about heartbreak. It was about taking back control. The morning after our anniversary felt like the calm before a storm I had engineered myself. I woke up before Rachel, sat at the kitchen table with a mug of black coffee, and listened to the quiet hum of our refrigerator. It was peaceful in a way I hadn't felt in months, because I knew what was coming. She didn't. I sent the divorce papers through my attorney with specific instructions. Serve them on a Wednesday morning, just as Rachel would be heading into her weekly strategy meeting with her staff. She prided herself on composure. I wanted to break it, not with yelling or violence or confrontation, but with timing, with precision. At 9:05 a.m., she called me. I let it ring. At 9:10, she texted me a photo of the documents. No words, just the image. I replied with 2 sentences. I know everything. I've known for a long time. 5 minutes later, she was at the house. I watched her pull into the driveway from my office window. She was still in her work clothes, a gray blazer, black pantsuit, heels too high for comfort. Her hair was curled as if that could fix anything. I stayed seated at my desk until she knocked. I opened the door, said nothing. She pushed past me and turned to face me in the hallway. Andrew, what is this? Her voice was tight, breathless, the edge of panic just beneath the surface. I held her gaze. You tell me. She looked away just for a second. That was enough. Can we talk about this like adults? Please? Now she wanted honesty. Now she wanted calm. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse her. I didn't even mention Trevor. I let the silence stretch until it felt like the walls were pressing in. Are you really going to throw our marriage away like this? She asked, her voice trembling. I almost laughed. I'm not the one who threw it away, Rachel. She sat down on the couch, burying her face in her hands. I stayed standing. I wanted her to feel the weight of it, the imbalance, the finality. I made a mistake, she said finally. I nodded. More than once. Over months, that caught her off guard. She looked up, eyes wide. You've been watching me? Documenting, I corrected. Protecting myself. She didn't speak again for a while, and when she did, it was the usual script. Regret, confusion, talk of stress and disconnection, and how things just happened. She insisted it wasn't about Trevor, that she didn't love him, that it was just a mistake, a phase. But I'd read the messages. I'd seen the photos. I knew what she told him about me, about our life. You don't tell someone, I wish I had met you first, unless you mean it. I told her I wasn't interested in repairing the marriage, that this wasn't just about an affair, it was about betrayal of character. She left shortly after, and I knew where she was going. Straight to him. So I started the next phase of my plan. Over the years, I'd built a reputation in our community, not just as a software engineer, but as a problem solver. I served on nonprofit boards, volunteered at local schools, helped struggling small businesses modernize their digital presence. People trusted me. Rachel knew that. What she didn't know was that her own social standing was more fragile than she believed. It started with whispers, carefully placed, harmless-seeming comments in the right ears. Did you hear Rachel canceled 3 meetings last week? Must be burnout. She's been really distracted lately, not sure what's going on. Andrew's been looking rough. You think everything's okay with them? I didn't need to say much. People filled in the blanks. Next, I contacted 2 of the venues her event planning firm frequently used. I had friends in those management teams, people I'd helped when their websites crashed or their booking systems glitched. I didn't trash her. I simply informed them that I'd be going through a divorce and wanted to make sure our financial ties to her business were separated. That led to questions. Questions led to caution. One venue paused all upcoming events with her company pending review. By the end of the week, she'd lost 2 contracts and didn't even know why. Meanwhile, I turned my attention to Trevor. He worked mostly remote, but one of the companies that contracted him for marketing had a board member I knew personally, a former client turned friend. I scheduled a coffee meeting, casual, friendly, but I made sure to leave behind a folder of documents accidentally. Emails and texts between Trevor and Rachel that weren't explicit but were clearly inappropriate for someone doing business with a married client. That company ended their contract with him the next day. No explanations. Just irreconcilable values. The dominoes kept falling. I also filed a detailed financial review with our attorney, citing Rachel's misuse of shared assets, travel expenses that weren't related to her business, nights at hotels that didn't line up with her claimed meetings. It gave me more leverage in the settlement. We'd both contributed to our lifestyle, but I'd been careful. She had not. And yet, through it all, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't humiliate her in public. I didn't post on social media. I stayed quiet, polite, civil. I was the picture of grace. People started reaching out to me, sympathetic, supportive. Even some who once treated Rachel like royalty now came to me with awkward condolences. She must have felt it, the cold shift in tone. the polite distancing, the fact that fewer people were returning her calls, that referrals were drying up. Then, 2 weeks after the papers had been served, she showed up at my door again. This time, she didn't knock. She used her key. I was in the kitchen when she walked in. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept, hadn't eaten. Her hair was undone, clothes wrinkled. I set my coffee down. "You can't just use your key anymore," I said. "I didn't know where else to go," she whispered. "He left me." I didn't react. She stepped closer. "He said he never wanted anything serious, that it was just fun." I still didn't say a word. "I lost 2 contracts this week," she said. "One of my vendors ghosted me, and I know you had something to do with it." I shrugged. Actions have consequences. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Maybe she didn't. Maybe the version of me she thought she married was someone she could manipulate, someone who'd forgive anything just to keep the peace. But that version was gone. "I was wrong, Andrew," she said finally. "I should have come to you when things got hard. I should have fought for us. But I didn't, and I'm sorry." I believed she was sorry, but sorry wasn't enough. "I'm not doing this for revenge," I said. "I'm doing this for clarity, for dignity, for closure." She started crying, and for a moment, a tiny part of me ached. 12 years is a long time to erase, but I didn't comfort her. I couldn't. She left quietly. This time, she gave me back the key. I finalized the divorce papers that week. I didn't ask for everything, I just asked for what was fair. But fairness, when you've been deceived, feels a lot like victory. The story didn't end there, though. There was still one more chapter, one more piece I needed to put in place. Because while Rachel's fall had been quiet and calculated, I had saved something special, something final, something public. 2 months after the divorce was finalized, I hosted a small dinner party. Nothing grand, just close friends and colleagues who'd supported me through everything. Toward the end of the night, I stood up, raised my glass, and gave a short toast. "I want to thank everyone here," I said, "not just for being part of tonight, but for showing me that integrity still matters. That even when someone tries to break you quietly, there's still a way to stand tall. Quietly." That was it. Simple, subtle. But the message landed. Word spread. Rachel heard about it within days. She called once more. I let it go to voicemail, her voice cracked. "I never thought you'd actually go through with all of it. You ruined me, Andrew." Number I didn't ruin her. She ruined herself. I just stopped protecting the image she was hiding behind. Months later, I started fresh in a new apartment, a new job, and a new chapter of life. Calmer, wiser, stronger. I wasn't angry anymore, just free. And that, in the end, was the best revenge of all.